Okay, tonight let's look at Matthew 12 or 13. How are we going to do this? Okay. This is an interesting passage for a lot of reasons. Um, it starts with Jesus went out and was sitting by the sea, which is an interesting phrase if you think of that. Here we go, verse 13. Verse 13 is where I want to focus. It says, "This is the reason I have spoke to them in parables, because having the power of seeing, they do not see, and having the power of hearing, they do not hear, nor do they grasp and understand." It's kind of struck me tonight. And then it even says, here it says, "Without a parable, he said nothing to them." So let me have a little fun. Let me give you a Fibonojji parable, something that I think could bless somebody, because it's always about perspective, and sometimes I think the expression is, it's not how you hold the burden, or it's not what the burden is, it's how you hold it. So maybe in my own way, my own imperfection, maybe in my own uniqueness, that I can offer something to you that could help you with the burden that you're facing. And I'm going to use a made-up parable, Fibonacci parable. I guess I was born on the 13th, so let me call this the Fibonacci 13th, inspired by Matthew 13. Just picture, if you will, your soul. Just picture your soul being an alloy, kind of almost like a metal alloy. And you know how you can kind of pour a liquid metal into a mold, and then eventually that liquid will cool, and then that will cool into a mold, and you have, I guess, a gold bar or a silver bar. I want you to think of your soul as a color, as almost a metallic color. You know, for mine, in my mind, I have kind of a color, and so I just want you to picture God pouring this beautiful, perfect soul into a mold, and you're just play with that image, and let me just kind of let you form that, so that your soul is being poured into a mold, and then it's allowed to dry or cure. I guess, you know, I'm not a metallurgist, so I don't really know if something is cured, or if it just dries or becomes a solid. So now your soul is a solid piece of beautiful metal. Beautiful, beautiful metal. And then that soul is put inside you, and let's say that you're kind of a robot, or in some ways the metal can interface with the world, so that everything that you went through, perhaps emotionally, or whatever, however you, as you were going through life, as Forrest Gump says, kind of accidental-like, picture that piece of metal moving around, and it's 1 year old, it's perfect, and 2 and 3, and then that starts walking around, and eventually that metal starts bumping into things and people start bumping into things and people, and there starts to become contact. And then that soul, that beautiful piece of metal, the contact with this person takes a chunk off, this person, boom, 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 boom. It starts to be just beaten and chipped away, and chipped and chipped and chipped and chipped and chipped. And then eventually that block that was formed in that mold it's interfaced with a world that in some ways has taken pieces off. You with me? So picture this as just a parable of the human soul as it grows up and as it develops and goes through adolescence, and relationships and marriages and divorces and jobs and no jobs and whatever it is. Eventually you might get to a season in life that Joseph Campbell will call the dark night of the soul. And if you just kind of use the hero's journey I know I'm throwing a lot at you. The Fibonojji 13 parable, Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, which is such a beautiful structure of human development, because that's what I'm talking about, is human development. You know, some people can look at their soul and maybe there's nothing left, and some people can look at it and say, you know, from my vantage point, from the Fibonacci perspective, I can see that your metal almost looks like a key. And then maybe you drop self-pity a little bit and come out of the hurt, come out of the harm, and you're like, holy fuck, you're right. You know, I used to be this kind of block, and now it's chipped away, and now kind of looks like a key, like almost something like you'd put in a door. Then you start to realize, like, well, let me just kind of participate with that image, and maybe it is a key. So your soul becomes a key through life. And then there's certain doors that only your key can open for people. There's certain doors that you'll notice that when you're around, this door opens. And how did that door open? It became the key that came through life in the beatings and the traumas and the pain and the hostility, if you will. Like Forrest Gump says, accidental like. So maybe this can offer a little bit of relief. You know, again, it's not the burden, it's not the weight of the burden, it's how you carry it. And if you just look at your own life and look at your own soul as a key that God wants you to be refined so that you can open doors. You know, I heard once that just a block of silver cost, you know, I don't know. But if you refine it, maybe that silver becomes springs, like in a watch, and then the watchmaker, and then eventually, as something becomes more and more finite and more delicate, and a tool, some of those surgical instruments will cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and you know, you might want to dance with your soul becoming a surgical tool. You might want to dance with the image of maybe a samurai sword, and maybe go online and look at videos of how swords are forged, and the heat is for them. God says that I am for you. There's a passage in the Bible that says that God fed us with the bread of affliction. And are we strong enough to even hold that image? And if not, let me just offer the parable of the Fibonacci key. And I'll end on the Master's words. It says, this is the reason I speak to them in parables, because having the power of seeing, they do not see, having the power of hearing, they do not hear, for they do not grasp and understand. Without a parable, he said nothing to them. The power of story. The power of story. I think it was Gandhi that said that we don't need any more successful people. He says what we need artists, we need storytellers. And I believe that. So in my own way, in my own imperfection, let me tell you what I see from my perspective. It's chapter 13.